Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and today is the 10th day of October 2025, and I'm going to talk today about love and loss. So for our scripture references, here's Psalm 34:18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. And secondly, from Matthew, the 11th chapter, 28 to 30, come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I know anybody who has sung the Messiah can't just read that particular section of Matthew. You have to kind of sing it in your head. I have a birthday coming up pretty soon, and I was reflecting on things. I've been a minister for most of my adult life. After graduating from Berkeley Baptist Divinity School, one of the dozen or so schools of the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, I served a small century-old church in upstate New York, just a stone's throw from Watkins Glen, where one of the Formula One road races is held each year. In my first week on the job in Montour Falls, New York, the mother of a key member of my church passed away. And I encountered what would be one of the prevailing themes of my ministry, and that is, how do we handle grief and loss as children of God? From the beginning, I have believed that we needed to face grief and loss with honesty and faith. Sugarcoating grief with spiritual platitudes about how the deceased is now happy with Jesus just didn't seem right to me. I was and I continue to be uncomfortable with making God the one who needed another angel in heaven. I don't like what that does to our perception of God as a loving and understanding God. From my perspective, God doesn't need to populate heaven by causing the death of my family members. I was only in upstate New York for 2 years before moving all the way across the country again, back to within a mile of where I had been in graduate school. And I became minister of North Brae Community Church on the north side of the campus. Berkeley's south side was where the students lived, and the north side of campus was for professors and staff. And my church in North Berkeley had a good sprinkling of active and retired University of California faculty. North Brae was a community church, and it served a constituency much larger than its membership. For the 27 years I was there, I did from 200 to 300 weddings per year and 150 to 200 funerals per year. I got out my calculator, and that's 3 funerals and 5 weddings on average each week. In my early days in Berkeley, I would superstitiously expect funerals to come in 3s. And if I waited long enough, the 3rd funeral would usually come along. But why did I worry about the 3rd funeral? Because I had some unresolved grief issues of my own. And as I spent time with each family working on some of their acute grief issues, some of my own grief would get tangled up in theirs. Only after I was able to resolve some of my own griefs was I able to really help the families I was dealing with. It took a while. It was a real privilege to deal with families in the Bay Area in their pivotal moments. I was involved with marriages, with deaths, and with new baby celebrations as each of those came along. I remembered the one Saturday where it all came together and I had a funeral, a wedding, and a baptism of a new baby all in that Saturday. And I wondered how I would be able to handle the emotional swings, but I was able to celebrate all three life landmarks for the milestones they were for those families. Both Elaine and I retired in our mid-50s and left the Bay Area for Maysville, Kentucky. That was a huge culture shock. In that first year we were here, neither of us knew what we would do next. I had conducted Elaine's father's, that is Cliff Pyle's, funeral in Mays Lick 2 or 3 years earlier, and so I was known to a few people around here as a minister. The funeral home in Mays Lick, where Cliff's funeral was held, asked me to do a grief group for families they had served in this area. And one of the participants in that grief group was a hospice nurse who had lost a son in a tragic car accident. When the 6 weeks of the grief group were over, one evening Doris gave me a call. And Doris didn't beat around the bush. She was wonderful. She said, "Dave, there's an opening at hospice for a chaplain. Get down there and apply for the job." So I did. I spent the next 5 years as a chaplain and bereavement facilitator for hospice. It was a positive experience, and it was an opportunity for me to continue to learn more about the role of grief in human life. I dealt with families who had varying perspectives on dealing with grief and loss. Some saw grief with strict time limits. One family advised their recently widowed mom that 6 weeks was enough grieving after a 50-year marriage. And it was time to start dating again, Mom. Some people were mad at God, who was obviously in charge of who lived and who died. Some people wanted the whole business of how and when we die to be fair. And one of the things I learned is it's not fair. It just is. Some people were rightly devastated by their loved one's loss, and I was able to assure them that it takes a long time. It's not easy and it's not straightforward, straight line progress. Grief ebbs and flows like the waves and the tides. And just when you think you're doing better, a wave can come along and submerge you all over again. I spent a lot of time with Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief, and I know them by heart. Anger, denial, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Sometimes these facets of grief are helpful in figuring out what's going on. When I hear someone talking about if only, if only, if only, I know we're talking about grief. But these days I find focusing on 5 stages implies that grief is a process that we can work our way through. And I think that's misleading. When we love someone for a long time, our love for them grows, evolves, and deepens. And the same is true for grief. When we lose someone we love, we don't stop loving them. Paul says, love never ends. But love needs to find new ways of expression. Over time, our love and loss continues to evolve and change. I lost my dad when I was 21. That's 60 years ago now. And I still have moments when he is very real and very present with me. We associate grief and loss with the death of a loved one, and that is often the case. But there are other losses we grieve as well. I know I'm feeling grief-like symptoms when I listen to the evening news. I could easily, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, turn to Toto and say, we're not in Kansas anymore. And the question would be, where are we? But loss is a part of human life. If we didn't love, we could avoid grieving altogether, but life would be without flavor and meaning. We believe in a God who is love, who is with us even in the shadow of death. Love isn't simple or easy, and it may require of us more courage than we thought we could muster. Khalil Gibran says, when you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. And again from Gibran, the deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Now, God bless you. If you find value in this, I appreciate it if you'd pass it along. But stay safe, and I'll see you soon.